guess if I want to be in a group, if I want to be
index card. These are excellent, excellent Does everyone have a similar pen and an index card? Yeah? Okay, great. I want you to, before we start, take a minute to write on your index card. Don't write your name. Just write very clearly the answer to the following 3 questions. Label them 1, 2, 3. You're on a desert island. And you're under threat of attack. You're alone. You find yourself on this island, and the sirens are going off because a missile has been launched, and you've got ballistic anti-missile defense systems in place.
That'd be one of the things you're on. You already have ballistic missiles.
And you're going to have to evacuate the island. But you have time. The siren means that you have, say, a certain amount of time that allows you to bathe. Because this is going to be the last shower you're going to have for a while, because you're now heading out to war. Question number 1. For your last bath, you have either the choice of shampoo and conditioner or shower gel. One of those two for your last bath before going to war, and who knows when you'll be able to clean yourself again.
Is the shampoo and conditioner 2 in 1?
Shampoo and conditioner is 2 in 1.
Deal breaker.
No. It's connected. It's the Head and Shoulders. I don't know.
I'm gonna take
It's one bottle, but it's split. So you have to ensure the cap of the conditioner is closed while you're trying to tip out the shampoo. Otherwise they'll mix, but they're separate. That or shower gel. Question number. No. Shower gel or shampoo and conditioner. Question number 2. You have a last meal before you head out, and you flee, and you go to war. Is it going to be milchik or fleishik? Meat or dairy? And then the final siren goes, which means it's incoming, and you've got 3 minutes. And you're allowed to either say, you have the time to either say the Shema or the Amidah. You can only say one. You only have the time for one.
It's a really short Shema.
Is it the whole Shema?
You have time for the Shema or the Amidah. Just one.
No, you don't say.
Once you've answered your 3 questions, if you could just turn them over and hand them to me. Any completed cards?
He doesn't want to go to the returns.
Yeah.
So let someone keep count. We've got shampoo and conditioner, shower gel, shampoo, conditioner, shampoo, conditioner, shampoo, conditioner, shampoo, conditioner, shower gel, shampoo, shampoo, shower gel, shower gel, shower gel, shampoo. Seems that boys' handwriting tends to go for shower gel and girls' handwriting tends to go for shampoo. Definitely boys' handwriting, definitely. Oh, 2 boys wash their hair. So, okay, that, more people want to clean their hair than their body.
You shampoo it. You shampoo it. Yeah, you shampoo it.
Or you can use shower gels. Nearly everyone went fleishik. But now let's do the count that we're interested in. The Shema or the Amidah?
Wait, what about meter here?
Nearly everyone was fleishik.
You said dairy? I said dairy. What? How much meat do you need? It's going to slow you down. Yeah, you need
Just count the cards, they're all Amidah. 11. Yeah. 11 people said the Shema, 9 people said the Amidah. Okay. Any volunteers? If you said the Shema, why would that be your last tefillah?
I said Shema. Because it's a prayer that is oftentimes associated with people in times of extreme trouble. And when we read about the 12 martyrs, we read about one of them saying Shema while he's being tortured to death. So I assume that there is reason for it to be that type of prayer.
So you're assuming that the end is imminent?
Well, you did say we're being attacked by bombs.
Right.
Oh,
And you're fleeing, but okay.
I don't know.
I mean, I was also working with the premise that
The end was 9?
yeah. So most of the Shema essay is asking for things which wouldn't be so relevant if I only had 3 minutes left to live. But the Shema is like a connection to Hashem, which is very relevant in those last moments.
I think Shema is also like a lot about like accepting, I guess, like the yoke of Torah or whatever, and that's like the basis of most of Shema. And I guess that when you're in like a state of like we don't know what's going to happen. I didn't think we were going to die, so I'm sure. So I guess I'd rather focus on that one point of Amunah and Hashem as opposed to like a million things in 3 minutes. It's kind of like you lose that kavana and you're just like trying to rush through the whole thing and ask for a million little things, but instead it's like you just trust Hashem for all of those things in this one.
Any other Shema? Liz?
So I didn't know which way to go, and then when I decided on Shema, I decided on it because I think it connects a single person to the entire history of Jewish people through the ages who, like everybody said, as martyrs, who say Shema as the last minute in war and any sort of thing. It's a part of, like, I feel like it's just a very big part of Judaism.
Any other Shema votes? Okay. How about the Amidah? Why did you choose your last tefillah to be the Shemona Esrei? Hadar?
So I chose Amidah, I guess for a couple of reasons. First off, just because personally I connect more with Amidah than I do with the Shema. But also just because I think Amidah symbolizes more tefillah and Shema is more Torah. So if you look at it kind of like that, tefillah is much more like kind of an instant connection to God than Torah is. And I would want to have that last minute of my life. Yeah.
We have an Amidah at the back.
Well, I also personally connect a lot more to the Amidah than the Shema, but I also was kind of thinking about it logically that I thought that also I was also under the impression that bombs were being dropped after that time period. So I was thinking that if I finished that, I was able to daven the Shemona Esrei before that, I would be, and if I knew that I was going to be dying, then at least I could be davening for all of Klal Yisrael and all the other parts of Shema Esrei, aside from from the personal requests or things that you're asking for all of Klal Yisrael. And then after that, as I was running away and as the bombs were being dropped, I could quickly utter the Shema as I'm running. Yeah, no, but that was until the bombs started dropping. But then I could, as in the yeah.
Who else? Amidahs. Amidah Jews? Yeah.
Well, traditionally, in some senses, the Amidah has been given more weight. It's arguable in both directions, but the Amidah is sort of, the Shema is really just sort of biblical verses that are cited traditionally, and the Amidah is something that's nominated as the prayer, at least in the Talmud, as when it ever refers to the word tefillah, prayer refers to that.
Right. The Amidah is the prayer. It is the paradigm of what tefillah is.
It contains, as brought up, it contains bakashot, or sort of you can ask for things, and in Shema it's sort of remembrances and it's different intentions.
So might we say that the Amidah is forward thinking and the Shema is looking back? The Amidah
in
is
some senses,
hopeful.
The Shema is also very current, and in some senses forward thinking, because you recognize, it's all about recognizing God's dominion and receiving the yoke of heaven. So in some senses it's not exclusively about the past, but it's not specifically requesting things. It's more of a general, at least I see it as more of a general thing.
I felt that the Amidah might have been a little more appropriate to choose, just based on content. Except, in his situation.
Why do you say that?
Just because it's bakashot and it's a very trying time, and tefillah is what you should be doing, presumably, because at least on Yom Kippur we say that tefillah is one of the things that is very powerful. But I don't think I could, at least in 3 minutes, get into a state where I would be able to say a proper Amidah if there was a siren and a bomb and such things going on. I don't think anyone would be able to just take 3 steps back and forget about everything else that was going on.
It would definitely be hard to compose yourself. Any other?
That's for Shema. Shema is basically connecting yourself to a larger group of people. It's in the Torah. It's when you're saying it, you know that you're part of something bigger. No matter what happens, this is who I am. This is what's going to happen. When bombs are being dropped on your lonely island, you have what are you going to say? God, please help me. Okay, God knows that you need help. But you just want to get it out there in the open, this is who you are as a person. No matter what, I'm a Jew, I'm connected to this greater thing. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but this is it.
What's the line? Is only if you know what you're willing to die for, do you have something worth living for? So, okay. Any other thoughts or reactions? So I think we've
I have one more thing.
Please.
Also, I guess another reason for Amidah is that the structure is built you have brachot rishonah and brachot orfanot that allows you to kind of attain a higher spirituality level and kind of leave this world, which is probably what you're gonna be probably dying soon. So you want to have that again because the bombs are
Oh, you're talking in the.
Yeah.
I think you were saying.
So you want to have that spiritual life still there. I guess maybe Shema does also. I don't really connect with it, but I don't think it does as much Amidah does. So it allows you to kind of forget about your physical life and think about your spiritual life more.
So I agree. I think we've fleshed out some of the fundamentals about what the Shema is, what the Amidah is, and how radically different they are. And maybe each day when we're davening, we're in the middle of Shacharit, and we're building up to it, we kind of view the Shema and the Amidah as the core of Shacharit and the main part of davening, but not necessarily realizing how radically different they are actually as prayers. In fact, the Shema isn't necessarily a prayer. We just call it that, but it's it's a reading of Torah. It's more limud Torah than tefillah. We actually fulfill the mitzvah of learning Torah each day. If you don't do any other learning, then you are mekayim the mitzvah just by saying the Shema, v'shach b'chav kumecha, saying it twice a day. So, at its core, the Shema maybe is saying something to us, whereas we're saying the Amidah to God. And the Shema is maybe more inward, and the Amidah is outward. I think we also touched on the historical essence of the Shema. And today we'll focus on the Shema, and then end off or begin next week with talking about the content of the Amidah. But yeah, some people mentioned, like, Morty mentioned the martyrs. So when you think of Shema as in Jewish history, Rabbi Akiva dying with Shema being his final sentence, and what's the story? Anyone just want to shout out what happened?
He was being tortured to death, and he was saying Shema, and he died when he was saying Echad.
Right, he extended Echad, and prior to that, his student said to him, and he seemed to be doing it with sort of composure. He seemed to be very present in the moment of what was happening. He wasn't suffering. And he said to his Talmidim, all my life I've struggled to understand. I've understood how to serve God. With all my heart, with all my soul, with all my resources, with all my sort of material possessions and being. But with all my soul, only now when I've got no body left, and I'm just soul, now do I there's a certain, he reached a certain level of contentment and composure, because he was fully, totally proclaiming God's oneness with every thing that he had at that point, and he extended the last syllable, and that's how he left this world. More recently, the famous story of Roy Klein, who was killed in the Lebanon War in 2006 he died in 2006. He was the commander of a unit. He was also a Talmud Chacham, and a grenade had been thrown into where his unit had been standing, and most of his soldiers were taking sort of sniper positions and hadn't seen the grenade come over their heads. And he realized, and he turned and saw it without the pin in, that it was actually not one of theirs. It wasn't just a grenade that had been sort of fallen out one of their pockets, but had been thrown by the terrorists that they were trying to hunt down. And he realized he didn't have time to tell them, to get people to get away. And he had that split second to jump on it and to absorb the blow, or to try and get cover for himself. And he, saying Shema Yisrael, he absorbed the blow and saved everyone else in his unit. And that's a modern day hero and a modern day story of Rabbi Akiva. So the Shema definitely has more of a historical, national meaning for us. Title of the show was the Shema, a Jewish constitution. It's almost like our motto, our mantra, a line which we just carry with us. Stories from the Holocaust abound with the Shema being a central feature of people going to their death with it on their lips, or to their lives. A famous story of two rabbis, Rabbi Kahneman and Rabbi Silver, different versions of who it actually happened to, but great rabbis in the post-war period who went around Europe after the Holocaust visiting convents, and they'd knock on the doors saying, we know Jewish children were given to Christian families who were sympathetic to the plight of the Jews who are their neighbors, and we'd like to have our kids back. And invariably the response they received was, there are no Jews here, there are no Jewish children here. And they persisted, and occasionally when they'd managed to get in, and they would meet with different clergy members who ran these convents, and they said, we guarantee, either they were trying to hide them or they genuinely didn't know that they had Jewish children. And it took to a point where Rabbi Silver would get up and shout out in the dining hall full of 5 and 6-year-old kids, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, children who hadn't heard Hebrew for 3-4 years since they were little infants, and all of a sudden they'd start to hear them crying and scream Mama, Mama, and they knew instantly who the Jewish children were, and they managed to bring them back. So the Shema has this tremendous emotive, national, historical significance to us that perhaps the Amidah doesn't have. The Amidah is really personal. It's really individual. I'm not sure what I'd choose if I just had 3 minutes, but I guess you want to proclaim your identity on the one hand, but also you don't want to lose hope, and you want to daven and ask that Hashem will save you. So I couldn't fill out the card, but okay. So let's with that introduction, let's open to page 90 with the Shema for Shafret. So the first question is, who's speaking here? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. Who's saying, here, listen up?
Like actually where the words came from?
Yeah.
Like
Who's...
Yaakov's kids?
That's a medrash, and we'll get to that. Who's saying this pasuk? Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He's instructing Bnei Israel. This is part of his lengthy farewell, rousing speech. And he's saying, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Saul referred to a medrash that says that when Yaakov was on his deathbed and he was surrounded by, and this speaks actually to the historical significance of the line again, and he's surrounded by his children, and in the back of Yaakov's mind as he's dying, he's thinking, you know what? My grandfather had 2 sons, and one of them continued the tradition and one of them didn't. My father had 2 sons, one of them continued the tradition, one of them didn't. And surely that is a theme. There's a battle that has to happen in each generation, and good versus evil. And I've got my 12 sons around me and 2 grandchildren. Who here is the bad egg? Who's it going to be that is the Ishmael, is the Esau here? And they say to him together, Shema Yisrael. Listen, Yisrael was Yaakov's other name, the name he got when he fought with the angel. And he says, they say to him, Shema Yisrael, here, listen up, Israel, Yaakov, Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is all of our gods. We all put Hashem, none of us are going to break off it. We've got all 12 tribes around this bed, and we're all going to carry on your mission and going to continue build the Jewish family from here. So, and he responded to them, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Olam V'ed. It's kind of like a bracha, like his gratitude that he realized that finally, and that's kind of really why Breshit ends where it does with Vayechi. It can end at that point because only when everyone's on board, only when all the sons are around and everyone sort of buys in to the mission, can then the story of the Jewish family being born end, and then we move to Shema with the birth of kind of the national people. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Olam V'ed isn't a pasuk. It's quoted in the Gemara in Pesachim, and that's why we say it in a hush, because it's everything else we're saying in the Shema is psukim, so it's a machloket, should you say it or not, and the Gemara discusses it, and so we compromise by saying it quietly. But there's more on that. But back to the line of Shema. So Moshe is talking to the Jewish people. Anyone? What have we learned here? What do people know about the formula here, this line? Any insights as to its structure or its meaning?
I think, I don't remember when I learned this, but the whole part of Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is that you have to acknowledge that before you could declare the oneness of God, you have to accept Him upon yourself.
Okay.
So that's why if Hashem is our God before Hashem is the only one and only.
Okay.
So that's why that is in that order.
Great. Any other?
I think the contrast between Hashem Elokeinu and Hashem Echad is that actually I heard from a thing it's like Elokeinu, it's kind of weird because it's plural, which is an issue for people who are polytheistic to kind of point to that. But he says because it's hard for people to kind of like digest the fact that like there's one God and He has a personal relationship with each and every Jew. So it's easier for us to kind of like understand that like we have like our own personal Hashem that we connect to. So I think this when you say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you might be saying like Hashem is my God, like personally, and have a relationship with Him, but He's also the same God that He's had a relationship with all the people in Shulchan right now, and all the Jews in the world, and all the Jews that have ever existed. It's all one God.
So that was linked onto my next one. When we say it, right, Moshe was saying it to Bnei Yisrael. When we say it, who are we saying it to? If Shema isn't a tefillah, who are we saying the Shema to? Could be to ourselves.
To whoever we're like, I mean, especially when we say it out loud. So I guess like if we're adopting a minion theoretically, then it could be to everyone else around us.
Okay. To everyone in the room.
I mean, with declarations, it's kind of like there's two sides to it because I mean you're really saying it for yourself, but the fact that you're saying it out loud is also significant because you're kind of like making it a part of yourself.
And I think I said it's not a tefillah, but in a sense we're saying it to God, or we're hoping He's listening in. So we're saying it kind of is three-dimensional. We're reminding ourselves, we're kind of giving each other support, encouragement, we're sort of declaring it publicly, and that this is as a community what we believe in, and we're obviously stating to Hashem our faith in Him. What's Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei name, that the four-letter name, and Elokeinu? What do those two represent? Two different.
Rachamim and Din.
Which is which?
Elokeinu is the Din.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is
Say.
Presence throughout time.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
Was, is, or always be a being that is master of the universe.
Okay, so the first name of God that we get to, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav and the Hey, if you look at it as a word, and we never really think of it, like when I look at that word, I see Ador. I don't see what that word spells if we were to say it. We've been so trained to read it. It's amazing the power of the mind. So, but what it actually at its root, you've got Haya, Hoveh, V'Yihiyeh, past, present, and future, was, is, and will be, and that's really what that four-letter name means. It's the fusion of past, present, and future. It's kind of the existent thing. There's no kind of good word to translate it, but it's the God is kind of existent being, the Bia, He is Beer.
Infinite existence.
Right. But transcending time, and Elohim as the attribute of din, of sort of justice, of stricter justice, and is more implies control over the world, stronger kind of kingship over the world. But either way, Hashem, whether He's in either form, Midat Hadin or Midat Harachamim, the God of mercy or the God of judgment, whether He's Hashem or He's Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. It's one being. Don't think that there are sort of forces of good and evil, a good God and a bad God, not at all. It's all Hashem Elokeinu is Hashem Echad. We see also that the ayin and the dalet are slightly larger than the rest of the letters in the pasuk. which means that.
You want to make sure that it's a chag, not a claire.
Okay, so one of the reasons is so that you pronounce it so that the dalet is clear, so that you say that God is one, not that God is acher, another, which would kind of be shooting yourself in the foot if you're trying to, talk about one God here. What else does the...
that it spells aid, your witness, that God.
So it's indicating we're testifying to this statement, to this sort of Jewish constitution. What else do the letters spell?
Dad.
Which means...
No.
Right. Which means to know, to have this awareness. Okay. And there's a whole sort of vast literature on the thoughts that we're meant to have when we say this pasuk. We won't go too much into it, but the commentary in the Siddur here will tell you to think of sort of God as accepting His kingship over you, past, present, and future, unlimited by time, sort of having power from all four corners of existence, and so forth. Let's turn over to page 92. We just get a little bit of fresh air. So, do you mind just opening that window a little bit more?
There's a foul. Yeah. I don't want to break the flower pot. It's fine. You want some break?
So, if you look at the top of page 92, the art scroll tells us, whilst reciting the first paragraph, concentrate on accepting the commandment to love God. Classic question here, which is, before we even get to how you get to love Him.
How can you be commanded to feel?
Right. How can we be commanded to have a certain emotion? We perceive emotions as sort of things that come naturally internally within us, not things that you can be forced to do, and they're really consequences of things we do or experiences we have. How do we deal with that commandment?
Well, it's not unique in the commandments to say have an emotion. Like Sukkot, we're commanded to be happy. We're also commanded not to bear grudges, also to love the conqueror. I don't think this is any different than those.
Mm-hmm. So it's not unique. I mean, the question would still applies, but yeah, no, you're right. It's not. There are a number of emotion-based mitzvot.
Maybe just by, even if not wanting to do the mitzvah, like by forcing yourself to, it's sort of, even if you don't have the emotion, it can at least appear that you have it, and maybe if you do it enough times, eventually you'll sort of develop the emotion along with it.
Good. So there is an opinion that it's not actually, love isn't an emotion. The commandment of V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha is to do a certain series of acts, certain mitzvot, that will hopefully inculcate you with a sense of feeling. That's really, I guess, what the Jewish view on love is between like a husband and a wife. It's not the Hollywood love, the romance, that type of magic, although that's kind of important in kickstarting a relationship. But it's really, the root of ahava is hav, which means to give. So it's that sense of commitment and giving and just sacrificing for an other, the other in this case being Hashem, that leads to that feeling. So maybe it's not commanding an emotion, it's really commanding us to live a certain commitment. Maybe even just the commitment of saying the Shema every day, to sort of declaring a loyalty that then leads to a certain feeling, perhaps. But the core might be an actual behavior, a lifestyle.
It could also be just like a commandment, maybe not necessarily to love, but like to have an open mind and try and see God as being good and something worthy of loving, or being worthy of loving, and not to like write God off as being evil because there's evil in the world or things like that, but to try and like see God as being something that you would love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other?
Could also be showing us that it's not something that we already have, something we already possess. Like if we're shown that emotions can be committed versus saying like, you already have this, just harness it.
Wow, beautiful. Beautiful. Another emphasis of the. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're putting it in context of it's actually a much more concrete, practical commandment than make it out to be if you take, like, just say the half text. It's like, if you look into like the commentaries on those phrases, it's like very practical, like things that you're supposed to do to express your love, whether it's to use your abilities to serve him, or to be willing to die for him, or to be willing to give all your possessions just for one commandment. Those are very concrete, physical things. Mostly practical things you can do, so it's not such an abstract idea.
Right, and that gives support to the idea that it may not be this sort of meditative state of thought that we're meant to reach, but actually like a lifestyle of love, of just a decision to commit, which is again has a parallel in like in a marriage. Okay, I always focus on Rashi comments there that we have to feel that it's a daily reminder. Let's go with that. That every day we're being commanded of this. It's as if that we were commanded today to love Hashem, to take these things with us. And it's very practical. Right? This is meant to be something you take with you. Again, it's not just about a thought, a feeling. It's meant to accompany us. And even we end off the first paragraph. You tie it in your tefillin, you put it on your doorpost. Very real, practical, material kind of ways of carrying that love of Hashem. Not just meant to be some feeling, although we do want to cultivate that emotional connection. But it kind of, the Torah is recognizing that it's that right after our actions is the heart is led. Points on the first paragraph before we jump to the second.
I heard something in Israel is really the question is, why is it al Vecha not tocha Vecha? If it's something that you want to feel, is love not something that's inside your heart, and not al, which is like a very external word. And I heard that love, since love is not something that can be forced, putting it on top of your heart is all you need to do, and then it'll sink in. You put it outside, and then by doing the mitzvot, that's how the love will sink into your heart.
It's a beautiful idea. It's the voice of the Kotzker Rebbe, who says that it could have said Bilvavecha, as you said, Vavcha, and it says, these are the things I command you on your heart. And that he uses it to explain how sometimes someone can suddenly just, like that, where you have that aha moment, where things just click, where someone who decides to sort of commit in a huge way very suddenly, and we can be cynical of that, but it might be that a lot of experiences and feelings and teachings have sort of just been piling on them, and they've been hearing them but they've not sunk in, and then something happens that just kind of opens your heart, opens your mind, and then it's all there, and just eventually its power is so heavy that it sinks in. Okay, we'll just move on so we've got 5 minutes. So the second paragraph of the Shema tells us really like the other, I guess if you were to, here's a question. What does the Torah say about, if you were just to look at the Torah, just to look at the 5 books of Moshe, what are the theological statements in the Torah? What theology is there in the Torah? What stuff about God is there in the Torah? What does the Torah say about God?
He's one.
He's one. He's jealous.
He's trying and the being world.
Those are things he did, but in as much as we can say anything sort of to describe God. It says he's right. So we've got the Yud Gimel Midot, which the next word, you know, there's a vengeful or jealous God, but there's merciful, slow to anger, etc. So that's one category. There's that he's one, and really, and then I think the second paragraph of the Shema is the only other real thing that the Torah uses to describe Hashem, in as much as we can describe Hashem, in that Hashem actually cares about our behavior. There's a concept of schar v'onesh, reward and punishment. Our behavior matters. You know, all the rest of the stuff that we believe about God, that he's omnipotent and all-powerful and all-knowing, that's all not kind of mafurash, it's not explicit in Psukim. That's kind of Torah Shebaal Peh, that's part of our Masorah, that's Kabbalah, etc. But in terms of pure Pshat, all we have of Hashem is, Hashem has these 13 attributes. Hashem is one, he's ours and he's one, and that he actually our life, our day-to-day behavior matters. And that's really what the second paragraph is about. You do good, you'll get rain. You do bad, you'll get, you know, famine. You'll be punished. There's that give and take. That actually there's a real close relationship between us. And again, we have that idea of the tefillin, mezuzah, trying to keep it very much physical and present. You can maybe close the window a little bit.
Well, there are like a few more. Like there's like, for example, like Atawari Heladat Yashem Elohim Renom.
Okay.
Like there are probably like a few others that can also hint to like the one. So I think it goes along with what you're saying, which is that it's all along the same exact theme that they all refer to.
Yeah, that's a good point. But Ataharita. Right. So, Einod Milvado is, I guess, an element of Yichud Hashem, of the oneness. But in general, the Torah is, I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say, it's not heavily focused on, like Hashem, it's very focused on us and the mitzvah and the Jewish history.
For sure.
And there's just some sort of basic underlying facts, and that's really what the Shema is. It's our one time of the day to really just recognize just to remind ourselves what we believe in. You have to know what you're fighting for before you go into battle, and that's really the Shema. Okay. Anyone want to say anything else before we wrap up today? Who would change their answer of the 9 non-Esrei people? Or who now feels surer in their answer?
Is no one allowed to change from Shema to go to Shema?
There's no right or wrong answers here.
What you just said, it's what you would say if you're much war, so I don't know. You gave your answer. Kind of.
If you have a dualistic anti-missile system, you probably have some kind of safe room, safe house or something.
Alright,
You really
on that island.
So you don't have exactly on this island.
It's
This is definitely the main point.
And main point.
Obviously, of course, the third paragraph, which I guess doesn't have the same level of theological weight to it necessarily, it continues both the tzitzit idea, which really is similar to the tefillin and the mezuzah, and in fact is even stronger. The Gemara says that why are tzitzit tchelet? Why are tzitzit blue? What does it say?
Sky. You think of the water, you think of the sky, and you think of God.
So it says because tchelet's blue, so you think of water,
which reflects the sky,
which makes you think of the divine throne. So the question just to leave you with is, and then we have Yetziat Mitzrayim, of course, again taking it back to the sort of historical national element of the Shema. But the question to think about is that piece. If the tzitzit are meant to remind you of the Kisei HaKavod, because tzitzit are tchelet, they're bluish, aqua, however you want to describe it, and the divine throne is also that color. Why does it say that, so your tzitzit reminds you of the sea, which reminds you of the sky, which reminds you of the divine throne? Why not just have your tzitzit tchelet, which is the same color as the divine throne? What's the message? Something to think about embedded in that.
No answer.
Oh,